Hi, and welcome to the Future of Dermatology podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Faranak Kamangar, board certified dermatologist. We are here to talk about anything and everything dermatology related. You'll hear from me and my guests who are dermatologists, physicians, experts, scientists, residents, and medical students in the field of dermatology. We publish weekly, so if you like what you hear, hit that subscribe button and show us some love, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, welcome back. We're so excited again today to have Dr. Vidal, who has been on our podcast before on one of our most listened to podcast episodes. So we're so excited to have you back again, Nahid.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I think everyone knows Dr. Vidal so well, but just as a reminder, she just does everything and does it so well. She is a Mohs surgeon, an associate professor, and is an educator, and you do all the things. But today we're talking about something really cool you did, and one which was the ASDS Iron Surgeon Competition. And you can probably tell us a little bit more about what the setting of this is, because you probably go to all of the ASDS meetings as a Mohs surgeon. I haven't been in a few years. I need to go back because it's an amazing meeting. And this meeting is more focused, out of all of our derm meetings, more focused on surgical, cosmetic, lasers, hands-on. And you let me know if I'm wrong in that. But then the Iron Surgeon is such a coveted competition. It is so cool, and it's just such a high caliber. And explain to us in a minute with the exact nitty gritty, but you basically, as two Mohs surgeons, the way I remember it, you go up and you challenge each other. And so you went up and you duked it out with a fellow surgeon, and you won, which is incredible. It was so amazing to see. So I remember a long time ago when we were in residency and going to these things, the people who would be on stage doing the Iron Surgeon competition were like the giants of dermatology, which they still are. So it's now so amazing to see a colleague of mine, like from our generation, that I'm like, oh man, well, first I'm like, are we that old? That it just speaks to this such high caliber of everything you've achieved. So I loved seeing that. But also on top of it, you won it. You rocked it out. And there was the medical portion, like a video that you show and tell us all about that. But then there's also kind of like a fun spoof video, right? Almost of it, or like an entertainment factor. And you recorded I saw it on your LinkedIn, I believe, but it was the coolest Taylor Swift rendition. So without further ado, let me just hand it over to you. Let us know more detail and how you accomplished all of that. It was so cool.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, thank you for having me back. I thought it was so thoughtful for you to want to talk about this. So the ASDS is an annual meeting, and they have an event called Iron Surgeon where they usually have premier cosmetics dermatologists who compete, and they will present kind of just a cute little video or a skit. Sometimes it's live, sometimes it's a video that's pre-made, and the audience, your peers, vote in real time. And then once they're done, then their surgical lineup is there. And so this year it was me and Dr. Teo Soleimani in California. And so we found out somewhere around springtime that we were invited. And I was pretty nervous about it. I think, knowing what I know about the ASDS Iron Surgeon event, you kind of have to be able to just kind of let yourself be creative and be a little goofy for a minute before you do your professional presentation. So typically it's a little bit of a skit, either again, live or video for a few minutes. And then after that, there's a formal presentation with a defect. And so in our case, we were shown a large wound defect on the medial cheek after Mohs for melanoma. We were given that photo a few months before, and we were told, to give a presentation on how we would reconstruct that and to provide some educational pearls for the audience. And so what you don't see online is that presentation where I showed some videos and photographs of how I did that reconstruction. But what you did see was the video that we created just prior to it.
I almost wish I could see how you repair the defect too, but of course with HIPAA, probably not a good idea to share all of that. But it's so fun to see. Very rarely some of the Mohs surgeons share on Instagram some of their defect repairs, and I love watching those. They're so fun because we got so much of it in residency, but then when you're out and you're not a surgical dermatologist, you don't get to see as much of those things. You're not going to like grand rounds around that or anything. So that would have been really cool to see as well.
I agree. Reconstruction is probably the thing I'm so passionate about. I love it so much. It was a big draw for me going into Mohs surgery, was the creativity going into how you reconstruct wounds and just the desire to make people feel whole again. And so for me, I remember when I first saw Iron Surgeon, it was also in residency, and I was just, you're kind of just sitting back in awe and entertained. It was so much fun. It's so rare to be at these professional meetings where people do this. It's kind of unique for any conference I've ever seen. So, and I think very well attended year after year, and exciting stuff. So it was just an honor to be invited.
Yeah, it's a very interesting combination because they're inviting up the most esteemed colleagues, right? So academically, practically, like the best surgeons, but they're also tapping into, will also be very entertaining, which is hard to do. And every year, I think the surgeons like knock us out of the park with the entertainment value that is also brought, because I think now that is like a tradition that if you're going to do this, you also have to do something pretty cool. But I do have to say, your video, that has to be like top 1%. Just the level of, it was so fun to watch. How did you do all of that? And just tell us a little about, before we even hear it or see parts of it, like the setup of it or your vision with that.
Sure. So I should probably give some context that growing up, the part of me that nobody necessarily knows except for close family is that I made music videos all the time for fun.
Okay, this makes sense. This now makes sense.
Yeah, this was not like a random thing I just did. I never obviously showed anybody anything, but I grew up making music videos with my cousins, and I also would impersonate singers and memorize all the dances of all the different dance groups like NSYNC and Britney Spears. And
okay, so
I probably still remember them. And so
this is an unfair competition because you've been training for Iron Surgeon since you were like 3 years old. The other people had no chance.
It's more of an embarrassing little secret fun fact, that I don't normally.
I love it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are really shocked, but that's the background kind of growing up. In terms of where that creativity comes from is I love to write. I love to make my own lyrics and things. All that was kind of stuff I did in childhood out of boredom. And so when this opportunity came up, I knew I was going to do a music video. And I have to give a lot of credit to both my husband and my son because they were my initial filter. I probably had about 20 different songs that off the top of my head, I was like, oh, I can totally spin that into being like a clever related song to this event. One of them was Big Energy. I was going to, instead of big energy or big whatever energy, I was going to call it Big Mo's energy. And I had all these lyrics, but I'm not as good of a rapper. And so I kind of ruled out some of the rap songs, but I entertained all sorts of stuff. It was a full spectrum from Dr. Dre to Alicia Keys to Adele. There are all sorts of things that I had considered. But I think ultimately what inspired me was that Taylor Swift is kind of the it woman of the year. She's impressive. She's talented. And I love anybody who's at the top of their game. I've really become a Swiftie, not just through seeing her success, but my son became obsessed with her around last year. And so her music is in our house almost every day. I watched the Disney version of her Eras tour and just was marveled by it. And so the blank space title of that song made it kind of a no-brainer for me in terms of what to pick. So once I chose the song from there, I just kind of off the cuff as I was going to sleep threw out a few random lines to see if my husband thought that they would hit or not. And I wanted to hit for both the surgical audience and also people who aren't in our field, just to be enjoyable. And so he was kind of the veto guy. And so he would shake his head and he's so honest. He'd just say, I don't think that's going to work. I think at one point I even was so ambitious that I chose an Ariana Grande song and he was pretty honest with me. And he's like, I don't know if you can quite hit that singer, but maybe you should try some other ones. And so it was a lot of just getting opinions from people. But once I chose the song and I had just a few key lyrics, from there, it was just doing it during times when we had some downtime. And so we're all very busy. For me, I took advantage of flights. There was one particular flight where 4 hours, nothing to do, and there was no movies, the Wi-Fi was down. And so I just sat there and listened to Blank Space over and over again and just wrote the lyrics on that flight. And maybe fine-tuned it a little bit from there, but that's really all that went into actually writing the song. And then the recording of it was also more straightforward than people would imagine. You can do a lot online these days with very little equipment. And so this was all in my home. I have microphones, karaoke machines, kind of everything you would imagine somebody who does this kind of stuff for fun in their personal time has. And so the recording was straightforward as well. And then from there, it was desperation. So I actually emailed almost every major videography company in Minnesota to see if someone would take me on. It's a budget project. It's not a wedding. It doesn't appear glamorous, and it's kind of random and odd. And no one replied. And so I think we were maybe a month from actual Iron Surgeon event, and I hadn't even found someone willing to take on the videography portion of it. And so I was kind of talking to some of my nurses, and one of them said, "Hey, do you want me to ask my wedding videographer if he's willing to do this?" And I said, yes, I would take anyone at this point. No one wants to do this random academic project, and maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense either. And we did. So I never met him. I didn't look at any of his work. I just trusted that if he did her wedding, that he was going to be fantastic. And he was, and his name is Nick from Make Your Name. And he was just a phenomenal listener and really just appreciated the fact that everything was already organized, planned, and scripted. And just fantastic. He was the perfect person for it. And from there, the details of the shooting day are kind of a different story. But yeah, that's kind of how things came together. But it was last minute.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. There's so many pieces to that, and you nailed it. And the production quality to me seemed, and sounds like it was, because you have a really good videographer, it seemed very professional. Like it was like a professionally made like full music video, which was so cool to see. And it's just hearing you speak on how creative you are. I wonder if, and I'm not even wondering, I'm sure this happens, that translates over to the reconstructions. You're probably so also creative with the way you're thinking about, okay, you have this, because every Mohs defect will be different, right? There's no cookie cutter way of teaching Mohs constructions. Like you have to have that creative mindset. I wonder if within the ASDS too, like when they do these competitions, if there's a correlation between how well the defect is repaired and like how awesome the entertainment part of it was, because it's those skills are probably really, really related.
You're onto something. I definitely think that if I think about what draws me to reconstruction is absolutely the creativity that you can put into it, and I get to be creative every single day, and just a blessing to be able to do what I do. I love it. It's fun every day. Teaching it is even more fun, which was also kind of the spirit of the video, was paying homage to everyone who I admire, from our nurses to our technicians to all of the wonderful, fabulous fellows we've had in the past. And then, of course, the star of the video, which is my son, Mogi, who one take, no direction, just, pulled all those ray gun moves in there. He's fantastic.
Total child star. and that was another thing that kind of came away from it. It was such a community video. You really could feel the love that your entire community has for you. It was like, I think you had everyone in there, right? There were like fellows. There were other colleagues, probably nurses, and your son. I mean, your son takes the game. He's the star. It's true. He takes it. You stole
undeniably, undeniably.
How old is he now? He was so good. Yeah. How old is he?
He was 6 at the time that we shot that video, and 7 now. He just had a birthday, but
that's really impressive.
He had a tremendous amount of input in all of it. Even just, I think at one point I had thought about using some AI apps, but it was kind of terrible, actually, when I tried to do it that way. And it was actually him who gave me the courage. I'm not somebody who performs publicly very often. And he kind of gives me the courage. He loves when I sing to him. I pretty much only sing to him, but he gave me that courage to kind of bring that performer out of me. And but yes, he's the star. And also I just want to give a shout out to the incredible colleagues that I have, who I kind of blindsided. So I knew that they were wonderful people, energetic, love to have fun. And so I picked 2 of the nurses who I just think would have enjoyed this project, and didn't really give them a whole lot of context. They knew that it was for Iron Surgeon. I had shown them bits and pieces of the song ahead of time, and then they just showed up on a Sunday at work. Sebastian, who plays the fellow, is actually the significant other of one of our actual fellows. And then my husband actually was holding lighting, which is why it looks so professional, as he was kind of holding some nice lighting. And then, of course, Nick, the videographer, who I learned after the fact also used to love making music videos for fun. And so I think he kind of had a natural knack for that. I wasn't expecting. I thought we were going to do a lot of iPhone, pretty basic shots. And so he really kind of blew me away with his stylistic editing and all of that. But our nurses showed up on the day of, and I had a script. They didn't have to memorize anything. There was no practice. There was no rehearsal. Everything was one take. We just shot it kind of a few seconds at a time. And it all was over just a couple of hours on a Sunday. So it just came together nicely. And my first thought, as you alluded to, is when I actually saw the final video, my first thought was, you can just tell how much joy we have with each other. Just how much I really, really love being around the people I work with. They're just phenomenal day in and day out. Best part of my job, aside from our fantastic patients, are just the people I work with are tremendous, and a special highlight to the nurses. But yeah, and I was surprised that our fellows were willing to also send me little clips on their phones. I also didn't give them a whole lot of context other than that your face is going to be shown at Iron Surgeon, and they just trusted me and did it. But yeah, for me, a big part of doing this video was how can I be creative? How can I entertain? But how can I remain professional and not embarrass my colleagues or myself? And so I think that was actually the main challenge was if no one's going to see this video, you could go quite nuts on this. But I really wanted to be tasteful and to be respectful to what we do in real life, which is I take my job very seriously and I care about patient outcomes. And I wanted to make sure that that also was kind of the vibe of the video.
Now for a quick word from our sponsors. DermPub is the Journal of Innovative Dermatology. We are committed to promoting excellence in dermatologic care through the dissemination of cutting-edge knowledge and fostering collaboration among dermatologists, researchers, and industry professionals. We believe that by sharing innovative ideas and discoveries, we can collectively drive progress and improve patient outcomes. Contact thefutureofdermatology@gmail.com to learn more about DermPub. Want to be a sponsor of the Future of Dermatology podcast? We'd love to have your support. Contact thefutureofdermatology@gmail.com to learn more about getting your message in front of our audience. The Future of Dermatology is not just a podcast. It is a community of dermatologists who care deeply about your health. Have you ever wanted to produce your own podcast? OMG Media Outlet has all the tools and talents necessary to produce and promote your very own podcast, from recording to editing to publishing to promoting. They enable you and your podcast to shine while they do all the work. Contact Steph at omgmediaoutlet.com today to learn more.
Yeah, actually, you touched on such an important point. It's really hard to do these things. I mean, this is, I think, what physicians think about a lot. And just being on social media or being out there is really tough for physicians to do because you're always trying to balance that line. You've worked so hard to have this really professional relationship with your patients and your workplace, which is probably why a lot of us are not openly out there on social media and things like that as much, which is totally understandable. But then what happens is everyone else is on there and then they claim to be experts. Yeah. So it's a whole thing. I mean, that's like a whole, we need to like almost, then there's no education around that, right? Like in medical school or anywhere definitely not when there was no social media, I don't think as much like how it is now when we were going through medical school. But it's like, how do you do that with that line of being approachable and showing your personality, but then still, it's a tricky one. That's really hard. It is.
That was the hardest part, actually. Everything else, I think, came pretty naturally to me because I've been doing these random things my whole life. But the hardest part, even in just deciding to accept the invitation, obviously an honor, who wouldn't want to do it? But for me, I did hesitate. And the main hesitation was the last thing you want is to not be taken seriously as a surgeon who really, really cares about patients. And so that was at the forefront of my mind the entire time. And so even just with the dancing and the jacket that I wore, everything that I wore, I wanted to make sure that at the end of the day, it was tasteful. And I do want to mention that there's something that we did in the video that was super intentional that actually also was real, which is that at the end, you see the nurse and I kind of holding the patient arm in arm and walking her out. And that's something that our nurses actually do with our patients in real life. I see it all the time. And it's one of the sweetest moments is, you do the reconstruction, they get bandaged, but then when you watch them walk out with the nurse arm in arm, there's something just so incredibly sweet about that I wanted to capture that. But you nailed it. I think the hardest part is how can we make this fun, entertaining, but also still make sure that as voices in our specialty that we are still taken seriously professionally.
Yeah, no, and you nailed it. Yeah. Whatever you did, it was amazing. It was like the perfect mix. And how is the day of? I mean, I imagine you've done all this hard work and then you show up. Are you on stage? Are you looking out at people or are you sitting down while the video's being played to like this giant room of all your colleagues?
Well, you don't get to know ahead of time how that's going to work a whole lot. So essentially the cosmetic dermatologist went first and competed, and it was unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. If you think my videography looked professional, this looked like a professional movie set. I mean, it was unbelievable. And they did great. So we watched them first, and we watched the live voting happen for them. And then once they're done and they get their photos taken, then my competitor, Dr. Teo Soleimani, went up and he did his. And I also want to give him a shout out because it was awesome. He did an Iron Man, not Iron Man, Marvel skit where it was actually kind of through the mask. So he actually was controlling kind of his environment with his hands. And it was very awesome, kind of interactive, fantastic presentation on reconstruction. And then they then do kind of like a little introduction about you, show some photos, kind of hype you up a little bit, and then you go on stage. And that was the most awkward part is I played the video and I didn't know what to do with myself, because the last thing I like to do is watch and hear myself. So for me, that there was 5 minutes of cringe where I think at one point I just turned my back to the audience so that I didn't have to like look at anyone. And then I realized that was ridiculous. And I turned back around and I just looked down at the floor until it was all over. But then, yeah, you're doing this right in front of everybody on stage while your video's playing on the screens. And then from there, the session had gone so late that I basically just told the audience, I said, bad news is we're running very late. The good news is it's going to be short and sweet. And so I like to keep on time. And I did. And so it was a nice short presentation on the reconstruction. And then we had that live voting right then and there, which is, it's so nerve wracking. Yeah. I think beforehand I texted everyone like, please lower your expectations. That was my mindset, was we all need to just keep the expectations low. But I was really surprised.
I'm sure they loved it. Yeah. Was everybody just standing and cheering? I can only imagine live what people were doing after they saw this. It was so awesome.
Well, live from where I was standing, I couldn't hear anyone or see anyone. You couldn't tell. It was actually after, when some friends sent me a video from their seats, that I could hear the commentary, the laughter, and the cheering. From stage, I actually couldn't hear any of that. It looked like it had fallen flat from where I was standing.
Oh my God, that's really, that's like nerve-wracking. You're like, oh my God, they all hate it.
Yeah, no, from where I was standing, I couldn't hear anything or see anything. And so, I only found out after the fact from people sending me videos, and I could see kind of what they saw from their perspective. But it was nice to hear people who actually aren't even Taylor Swift fans say that was really great. I enjoyed it. But I mostly loved the diehard T Swift fans came up to me afterwards.
Oh, I'm sure there was. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it.
They're always great. There. I feel like it's probably the majority of people now. So I'm sure people went crazy.
Yes.
The Swifties went crazy in the room. So they basically they do a live vote, and then they tell you right then and there.
You got it.
Oh God, I love it.
And then I think I just ran off the stage and they're like, come back up. And they kind of they gave you some medals. We got a cute little medal.
I love it.
Take some pictures and that's
Where is the medal now? Where does the medal live? This is a high achievement.
The medal lives on a hanger next to the amazing jacket that one of my nurses, Pam,
there's a Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what to do with that jacket. It's kind of a one-time use thing. So it's just hanging in my office, and then the little medal is with it.
I love it. Yeah. But it's like every day you walk in, it's just a reminder. It's like, yep, I'm an iron surgeon. A very fabulous one though.
Yeah. Well, the beautiful thing about working with Giants, I work with so many incredible surgeons and colleagues, is you get humbled pretty quick. You come to work and you're over it pretty fast, and so it's not
probably
like
true too.
Your ego doesn't get very big. You're like, these guys are amazing, and so
you're back at work and one day, and it's just back.
Yes, that's pretty much exactly what happened. Everyone's like, "Did you win?" I was like, "Yeah," and then we were on to patient care, and that's kind of.
Oh my gosh, so much fun! No, but thank you for sharing this, because it's hard, I think, for us to do anything other than just our everyday work that we do, but it's so meaningful. And I can imagine how much it took of your time, energy, emotional energy to do all of this. And then it's so meaningful for the rest of the field, because I'm sure in that room, there were probably, even residents sitting there, or early career docs, or you've inspired so many people. Because that's probably where the residents are saying, okay, I'm going to become Mohs surgeon. I want to do that. And the other colleagues are just making them like laugh and have fun and remind them that our field is really fun, because a lot of times you're at other talks where everyone's talking about burnout and everything's going downhill and it's going to be terrible. Then you get to just have fun and enjoy.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's
a moment.
Yeah. And I think it's important to speak to that too, in terms of what this did bring to me. It's great to win, but I think really I had prepared to not win. I think it was more just what an honor it is to participate. But on top of that, we have so much going on within the profession, in politics, in the world, that's so negative day in and day out. And patient care is a serious thing as well. So I'm mostly in that professional serious mentality. And so I think it was just very nice to be part of something that was fun, creative, entertaining, that brought joy to other people. And you can tell like everybody who was part of it had a great time, and everybody who was watching it, at least after the fact, I learned had a wonderful time. So you're right. I think it's just uncommon to be at any kind of conference setting where you're allowed to do something this cool. So I love it. I love the Iron Surgeon event. I think that I can't wait for next year.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And thank you for sharing it with us. We have to get the video and put clips in here because there's speaking about it and then there's just seeing it. It speaks for itself. And then at the end of our podcast, we always ask about the future of dermatology. I guess in this case, what do you see for the future of your music video career? The future of, are you going to do another Iron Surgeon? What are you excited? What are you excited about this year? What other cool or challenges or different things are coming up?
Yeah, so I think this is a one-time only thing where you can try it once. But I think I'm going to probably stick to doing it with just my son at home, probably not public. But this I think maybe might give me a little bit of courage to potentially do some more types of performances in other settings, potentially. I don't know. Who knows? I think what it did do is it took away the fear. I always I always hid this side of myself just because, I don't know, for whatever reason, it was just really personal to me. And I had irrational phobias about it. And so I think for me, it gave me some bravery. And so I think if you can do this and take the challenge on, it makes me a little bit more open to do other things that are fun. You're still going to be viewed as a professional if you're a professional, even if you do something like this. And so I think it kind of took the edge off a little bit. I don't know what's to come in the future, but if anybody wants to do a collaboration and do something silly and fun in the name of Mohs surgery or dermatology, I think I'm game.
Oh my God, amazing.
Yeah, a collaboration would be fun. We have a lot of talented people.
That's the next step. Yeah, that's what's going on next year.
Yeah.
So well, thank you so much, Nahi. Thanks for joining again.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the amazing work you're doing.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to the Future of Dermatology podcast. Remember to hit that subscribe button and share the podcast with your friends. The more you share and subscribe, the more we'll be able to grow and share our dermatology knowledge. If you have burning dermatology questions, feel free to leave them in the comment below, and we would love to address them in a future episode. And please note that this podcast is not intended to substitute for medical advice from your doctor.